Welcome back to The Growth Show. I'm your host, Whitney Bateson, and today I am delighted to welcome someone to the podcast who is transforming how dietitians approach their work and how they serve their clients. So joining us is Krista Kolodziejzyk, a registered dietitian, entrepreneur, and founder of the Dietitian Success Center, or DSC. DSC is a revolutionary membership platform designed to empower dietitians with the tools and resources they need to deliver exceptional care while reclaiming their time. With resources like client handouts, evidence summaries, reference guides, and video courses, DSC has become a go-to resource for dietitians looking to optimize their practice. So make sure you check it out. We've got the link to it in the show notes. But Krista's journey doesn't stop there. With an MBA in sustainable commerce and an MPH in community nutrition, she is uniquely positioned to blend business savvy with her passion for improving community health. And if that weren't enough, she's pursuing a level 1 coaching certification with the International Coaching Federation, adding even more depth to her skill set. Outside of her professional life, Krista is an avid baker, triathlete, and proud mom to her baby boy, Sonny. She lives in Calgary, where she continues to innovate, inspire, and push boundaries. So this episode is for you if you're interested in learning a little bit more about DSC and seeing if you want to actually sign up for the membership, but more so if you are thinking about starting a membership for your business and you really want to make sure you understand what's involved, the different types of tips and skills that you need to bring into having a successful membership. We really just cover it all. Krista is a wealth of information. So let's dive right into the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today, Krista, to talk about such a fun topic.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be a guest on a podcast. It's so fun.
Yeah. Well, I know you've got your podcast. We love podcasting. And I
We
just
do.
love the opportunity for us to chat because I remember we met in person at Fancy on the floor
Yeah.
of the expo years ago.
Yeah.
And we connected and I was like, oh man, I really like you. This is fun. Like just talking and all of that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm
Totally.
excited for this.
Me too.
So you are the creator, founder of the Dietitian Success Center, which is a membership site for dietitians. So we're getting kind of meta here. Like you created one. We're going to talk about memberships today. So
Yeah.
when did you launch your membership site?
Sure. Yeah. So I launched Dietitian Success Center in 2021. So I think we're going to be celebrating 4 years, I guess, this
Nice.
spring. Yeah. So it's been
Congrats.
4 years of running a membership site every single
Yeah.
day. So I feel like I've learned the ins and outs, and we've grown, changed, adapted in so many different ways. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's given me a pretty good idea of what really a membership site looks like to run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
congrats to you for running it for 4 years because I know, well, we'll get into, what's
Yeah.
required and it's a lot. So I think that's
Yeah.
just like a huge accomplishment that it's going strong
Thank
after four
you.
years.
Thank
So
you.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And it can be a wonderful business model and a service offering for
Yeah.
both business to business. So you are serving other business providers, dietitians with your services, but then also many of the people listening today are probably going to be looking at it from a business to consumer B2C lens where you want to start a membership for triathletes. I know you're a triathlete or recipes for celiac. Like the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do. But let's dive into who are membership sites right for and who is better off offering their content maybe in a different format.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, my membership is actually part B2C and part B2B,
Oh,
interestingly. Yeah.
okay.
So under the umbrella of Dietitian Success Center is really an online learning platform for dietitians. So we have
Hmm.
half of our audience who are really the clinical dietitian that have absolutely no interest in business entrepreneurship. That's
Hmm.
half of the membership. And those are people that are accessing our entire nutrition library of content. So that's like client handouts, video courses, evidence summaries, our community. So that's one side of the membership. And then
Okay.
the other side of the membership is the business and entrepreneurship piece. And so that is the B2B side. So we have B2C
Okay.
and then also B2B. So I kind of understand
Cool.
the lens of both.
Right.
So yeah, so that's been, an interesting experience there. But the one thing that I always like to be super clear on is that so within the B2B side, teaching entrepreneurship is that, I mean, business when it comes to dietetics can be so diverse. And I never want to say that there's only one way, one right way to do things. I love to teach from a lens of like, I've seen hundreds of dietitian businesses and every single one is different,
Hmm.
honestly. And every single one works in their own unique way. And so I think, a membership is just one way to be able to structure your offering, but there's also so many other ways to be able to structure offerings.
Hmm.
So that's one of the sort of caveats I always like to give to whenever I'm talking about business and entrepreneurship is that there's never one right way to do things. But I know a lot of people are curious about memberships. And so if we want to define memberships a little bit, I guess it's sort of
Yes.
an ongoing, I like to describe it as like an ongoing business model where one of the huge benefits with a membership is that you get a little bit more predictability in your business. So typically, how a membership works is that people will pay monthly. Some people do quarterly memberships, so they might pay quarterly or annually. And so long as they're paying for your content, they get access to your content. And then they can cancel whenever they want. So that's a very normal part of running a membership is people coming in, people leaving. But that's one of the biggest benefits in having a membership is you get a little bit more of that consistency when it comes to business revenue. I know for myself, pre-running a membership, I was really deep in the freelancing and consulting world and I found it really challenging, honestly, the sort of ebbs and flows of revenue and being like, I don't really know what's coming in next month. I found that really difficult just for my
Hmm.
own personality type. And, exactly, right? And
It's
it's like
challenging for
it
everyone.
is challenging. I know, exactly. And it's like, if you're going into a launch or something and you're like, what if this doesn't work out the way that I want it to? And it just feels like there's so much pressure there.
Yep.
So I love a membership site. It works really well for me, but you also have to go into it knowing that you are in it for the long. And I think that this is a very important consideration when it
Hmm.
comes to a membership site is that, with an online course, if you're selling an online course or if you're selling a group program, there's a pretty definitive start and end date. Typically, that's typically how they run, right?
Yeah.
You start it and then there's a finish line. And so you can decide, well, okay, I'm not going to offer this anymore if I don't offer this anymore. A
Hmm.
membership, though, of course, you could close your membership if you wanted to. It's very much more a long game process. And a membership truly does grow one member at a time. So it
Hmm.
is often a slow burn, a slow and long game burn. But if you're willing to put in that consistent effort, it can really pay off in terms of having that more predictable, more recurring revenue.
Hmm.
Because when it comes to a membership, we have MRR, which is our monthly recurring revenue. And then we also have ARR. So we have annual recurring revenue. So you start to learn the longer that you've been running a membership, sort of what you can predict in terms of how many people are going to leave this month, but
Hmm.
then, how many people are going to come in next month. And so
Hmm.
what is my revenue going to look like? How many people are going to rejoin for another year when we're
Hmm.
thinking annually? How many people are going to cancel? And so you get a level of predictability that I feel like you just don't really get with other business models. But it's definitely a long game and it does require you to, actively think about content and what that looks like and putting out content every month, which we can obviously talk about, but
Hmm.
that just sort of gives a sense of I guess what it really looks like to run a membership and just some of the things you want to think about if you're thinking about membership versus a different business model.
Right. Yeah. And then would you say that, I mean, clearly you like this model in terms of how you can serve your customers? Like you were mentioning, I don't like saying one way is the right way when it comes to entrepreneurship. So I'm
Yeah.
imagining with your membership, you can then talk about lots of different models and lots of different things, as opposed to if you're running a group program, you may have to be a little bit more like, this is it. And I'll
Yeah.
be the expert about this, but we don't have
Sure.
time to go
Right.
over
So
everything
true.
else.
Yeah. So true. Well, and really the reason actually why I started as a membership is because with the nutrition side of our content, so more the B2C side of our content, it basically operates like a resource library where, a dietitian has a patient or a client coming up, and like, let's say this patient or client has PCOS and they're looking to access all of our client handouts and our video course and our evidence summary on PCOS. Like,
Hmm.
that is very much an on-demand tool,
Hmm.
right? It's something that, I look at this library of content and I know, I may need that next, right? I don't know what clients I have coming up. And
Right.
so from our perspective and from our users' perspective, it very much just made sense to have it run like a membership, because really, you should just pay to have access to the content. When you don't need access anymore, then you're paying. Whereas with a group, like a group style program or a start and end date, that just didn't make sense. People need to, and at the same time, too, like for us, we have to continue to release new content regularly. We need to continue to update our content regularly.
Hmm.
So, having that monthly recurring or annual recurring is really important. So, that was really more so the reason why the membership, I started with a membership model, and then it just made sense to have the business entrepreneurship side, the same model, just to keep things simple and keep things easy. I don't know if, when we're just talking about business and entrepreneurship, I do actually like how it's structured now, but I've gone through that conversation internally myself of being like, is this better to have kind of a more of a start and end approach to kind of keep people along a pathway? But then at the same time, I think about, my style when it comes to
Yeah.
teaching about entrepreneurship is very much more like, I like to think about things a little bit more holistically. I don't
Hmm.
like to teach one specific thing. And so, to your point, I do think it actually does make more sense as a membership. And, perfect example, because we're rebranding the business side, and it's called Business Project Lab now. And
Ooh.
it's really centered around facilitating dietitians in like the action implementation piece of business and entrepreneurship. I think,
Hmm.
that's been one of the most interesting observations that I've made and I've experienced myself as an entrepreneur, is just the struggle around getting the big things done that we want
Yeah.
to get done,
Yeah.
right? Like, even if I'm working day to day in my business, how do I kind of step outside and like actually work on that program I've been dreaming about for months or for
Hmm.
years or whatever?
Hmm.
And so it's really structured around that project implementation. And so we have
Okay.
toolkits for various different types of projects that dietitians might want to do. So whether it's a course, whether it's a podcast, whether it's just marketing in general, whether it's
Hmm.
audience building, we have all of those toolkits. And so now I think it makes way more sense as a membership, just so
Hmm.
that, dietitians can kind of go through that over the course of the year. They can go through the journey of
Yeah.
doing all of these different projects if they want to. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And people
Thanks.
can kind of
Yeah.
come in and work on the
Yeah.
thing that they need to work on or want to work on at that time and then come back when they want to work on something else. And just
Right.
having that, I know as a growing business owner myself, like just knowing where to go and get the information for when you're going to need it is such a
Right.
reassurance as
Right.
opposed
It's
to
so
being
true.
like, oh my gosh, so you're telling me I have to do this thing. I have no idea where to start or who to ask for that
Right.
information, and just having it laid out and being like, when you get there, because there's a lot of things too in business where it's like you just have to conquer one thing at a time and not
So true.
get too far ahead of yourself. Like
So
the
true.
thing, like I was just thinking even today earlier, just like the reason that I'm having a podcast right now is because I have overcome a lot of other things in my business that have freed up my time to be able to do this.
Yeah.
I I would not recommend like a number one first day of opening your business also saying, I commit to, starting a podcast and doing
Hmm.
that. Like there's just so many things that we need to be working on and building on. But that's really cool that you've structured your that membership or you're restructuring it in that way. So
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Thank you.
So all of that to say that there's not necessarily like one business type that is better suited for memberships or others, but it can come down to like what is the transformation or what is the solution that you're providing or the problem that you're solving. And if it's a problem that they're going to kind of keep coming back to, or it really doesn't have a beginning and an end, then that
Hmm.
might be one of the ways you could determine, is this a good fit for my business and the style of how I deliver my services?
Yeah, for sure. And I think also asking yourself, is the delivery of my content best suited in an ongoing manner? So, what I mean by that is like, are my clients or my members best supported if they are getting continual access to me and to my content and they're getting that regular accountability? So, for example, how a lot of dietitians will structure memberships is like, somebody gets access to maybe a certain number of sessions with them, like one-on-one sessions with them, or maybe not. Maybe it's
Mhm.
group sessions, so group Q&As or cooking demos or whatever that might look like. They maybe get access to an online course library. They maybe get access to meal plans or recipe books. So maybe the dietitian has access to that Clean Life and they, publish a new sort of generic meal plan every week. And so somebody gets access to all of that. So if
Mhm.
there is like ongoing sort of consistent content, then I think that membership can be a really, really great way to deliver that. The other really interesting thing too is that, and I didn't coin this, I've heard this, but this idea that when it comes to a membership, people come for the content, but they really stay for the community. So if you are somebody who really wants to put energy and effort into community building and building like a meaningful community of people, then I think
Mhm.
a membership is a really fantastic way to do that too. Because I know for myself, like I'm part of a few different memberships. And that's truly, actually, yes, why I stick around because I love the community component. Yes, the
Mhm.
courses and stuff are there when I need them. And if I want them, to your point, I know where to access the stuff if I need it. But I love just like even going into the community and like reading through all the posts. Like I learn so much from.
Mhm. Mm.
So they come for the content, they stay for the community. I think if you're a dietitian who wants to build community, then I really do feel like a membership is a great strategy because again, if we're talking about a group program or something like that, there is a start and there is an end date. And then what happens with all of those people? Do you just say, okay,
Yeah.
and then you all part ways? Maybe, and that's totally fine if that's how you want to set it up. But if that's not how you want to set it up, then a membership can be a really great approach there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So in your programs, like what role does community play? Like how do you foster engagement amongst your members and build that community for yourself?
Yeah. So we have a community forum. We have one side of the community forum that's for just the nutrition piece. So that's more for the practitioner who is working in a clinical community, a family health team type of environment, long-term care type of environment. And then we have
Mhm.
the business side, which is more for the entrepreneurial dietitian. So
Mhm.
we have our community forums. Now, it's been interesting. Like, I think facilitating community is a whole skill set in and of itself. You can't just expect that if you build it, they will come because that's just not how it goes. And I
Yeah.
remember hearing this rule, and I don't remember where I heard it from, but it's sort of the 99 and 1 rule when it comes to
Okay.
community, which essentially means that if you have a community of 100 people, you can assume that 90 of those people will never participate. They will sit back and they will watch and they will see what happens and they'll read the posts, but they will just be an active observer. I know, right? Totally. I'm like
That's
that
me
in a
too.
lot of communities too. 100%. And then there's the 9 people that will participate fairly regularly. And then you'll have your one kind of like super user who's in there like every day asking questions. So part
Yeah.
of it is setting the expectation for yourself that, when it comes to community, it is kind of a volume game. Like you do want to
Okay.
have, I think more people can, not always, but I think that it can create a bit of a better community experience. But you
Mhm.
also have to facilitate. You have to model the behavior that you want to see in return. So if I'm
Mhm.
expecting that people are going to post questions, I better be getting into my community posting regularly, right? I
Yeah.
have to be inviting that interaction and that engagement. And nowadays, there's so many community platforms that are really built around helping you foster that engagement. So
Mhm.
whether, you build your membership on a platform like Kajabi, or there's like Circle, there's School, Skool, like there's all of these community platforms that exist now,
Mhm.
which are really built around trying to, add a gamification. They add all of
Yeah.
these things, leaderboards, to try and facilitate that community
Mhm.
more. But that's a big part of it. And one of the things that we've done, which I think has worked quite well, is when we have a new member join, is we ask them a few different questions. So one of those questions is being like, what practice setting do you work in? And then if somebody comes into the community and they ask a question that's related to that practice setting, we will tag that person so
Oh,
that they
nice.
feel like they're being sort of acknowledged for their background and their
Yeah.
expertise. So, having some sort of a member management process like that, where you get to know your members a little bit and sort of their backgrounds, everyone has different experience.
Mhm.
And I think we all appreciate being acknowledged for our different experiences. So I think that can work in a different way in any membership style model, but that worked really well for us too.
Yeah, I love that. And having that like intentional onboarding experience too when people are coming
Yes.
in.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I like that about really like seeing members as individuals and
Yeah.
getting to know them and having, I'm sure you have that information somewhere. So it's not like your team is remembering, oh yes, Susie,
No,
like
gosh. Yeah.
it's documented, you have
Yeah.
systems, but then it allows you to personalize things and have people really feel like they're being cared for
Yeah.
and not forgotten about, because that can happen too, where it's like you join a membership and then, it's fun in the beginning and then kind of you feel like, oh, all right, well,
Yeah.
now there's 10 new people. I'm kind of chopped liver at this point.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
cool. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think the community building, I even took some like mental notes of what you were talking about.
Mm,
So that was great.
cool. Yeah.
So let's talk about like what are some of the most challenging things about running a
Mm,
membership website or
mhm.
program?
Yeah. Yeah, because challenges definitely exist for sure. I mean, like every business model, right? When we were talking at the beginning about around the like feast and famine style of like the launch model, like
Yeah,
that's challenging in and of itself.
right.
But with a membership, one of the biggest challenges is the piece around churn management. And, so churn being essentially how many people are leaving every month compared to the total number of members, or how many people are coming in every month. And so there's benchmarks around churn. So you want to try and stay under 10% is sort of considered like the
Okay.
gold standard for churn. But, it's really around detaching emotionally from churn. So it's so funny because when I first launched the membership, I remember this so clearly. I didn't realize that the website platform that I was using, it would send me a notification when somebody canceled. And so I turned that off right away. But the first day I didn't have that off, and I didn't realize it. And so I had somebody who, this was the first day that I launched the membership, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And so I had a bunch of people join, but then I also had people who joined and then canceled immediately because they didn't want to, they knew they just wanted to join for a month and they just wanted to
Oh,
check it out and they just wanted to see what I had to offer or whatever.
yeah.
And
Want to
then they would,
forget to cancel.
they didn't want to forget to
Yeah.
cancel. Right. And so, but I remember that first email I got where it was like somebody canceled and I was like, oh my
They
gosh.
don't
And
like
it
it. They came
emotion,
in and looked and
right,
they
right,
immediately said this was bad. Oh,
right. And so it was like emotionally, that was just so challenging for me. So now I do. Now I don't. Like I've
yeah.
come so far since then, and now I do not take it personally. I know that our membership is not for everyone. I know that people
Mhm.
come and they leave for whatever reason, and that's totally, totally fine. So it doesn't
Mhm.
affect me anymore
Mhm.
anyway. And that's just, you have to detach from that.
Yeah.
But that's definitely challenging for sure. And the piece around solving for retention as well, right? So that becomes a big problem to solve in the business, is not only getting new members, but retaining your current members.
Yeah.
And so, putting in place retention strategies to make sure people stick around, that has been a huge priority for us for sure. And, and it's been cool though to see as well, like when you have metrics that you can track around churn, to see, are the strategies we're putting in place working or are they
Mhm.
not working? So you can kind of gauge what's working, what's not working. I think that sometimes with a membership, it can feel a little bit like a hamster wheel of content creation and generation
Mm.
for sure. And we've had a lot of team conversations around just like what that feels like, what that looks like, how we step out of that. Cause I also
Mhm.
think sometimes that's a little bit self-imposed. Like we kind of feel like,
Oh.
we need to keep like pumping out new stuff in order to get people to stick around. But it's like, that's actually, again, that's not the only thing that keeps people around. And it's a
Mhm.
balance between not overwhelming people with stuff
Yes.
that they just like can't even handle.
Mm.
But then also, yes, having regular updates. And so, this year is kind of our year of stepping outside of that hamster wheel and thinking a little bit more long term and like over the course of the year,
Mhm.
what does our creation schedule look like? So still having regular things come out, but it just
Mhm.
doesn't need to be every single month because I just don't really think that it's necessary. Honestly,
Yeah.
I just
It
don't.
sounds like that wasn't a promise that you made when people enrolled either, like new toolkit every month or,
Not necessarily. Like
yeah.
I mean, we do say like we update and release new content regularly for sure. So we still definitely do that, but
Yeah.
it's more like I don't actually think our members are really looking for because they see this massive content library and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, a lot of the stuff I've never even accessed before." Like there's
Yeah.
still so much in there that I can get
Yeah.
value. It's like they're not waiting for the next thing.
Plus,
Unless it's like a
it's
timely
something
piece of
useful,
information,
right?
then yes, of
Yeah.
course,
They're
right?
not just
But
waiting and being like, "When is the next handout going to drop?" Like, I
exactly,
wanted a new
right.
handout.
No,
It's more
exactly.
like, "I was
Yeah,
looking for this handout specific to this condition. Oh, I'm so
yes,
glad that it's been released and now it's solved the problem, and
100%.
there you go." And I
Yeah.
also think, I mean, you mentioned about the overwhelming people, and I was just talking with someone else about this too. Like, everyone's busy. Our customers are busy. We're busy. When we join a membership, we
Mhm.
know how much time we have or don't have, or join a course or whatever. And when we pile everything in there that we think people need, it can have this reverse effect of people just feeling really overwhelmed and also
Yes,
feeling like they are not getting the value out of the thing that they purchase because they can't possibly get through all of it.
yeah,
Like, I bet if you
100%.
had like 200 of whatevers, it was like way too
Mhm.
much, 200 when really people only needed 50. People
Yeah.
would probably be like, "So I'm paying for this and I'm not even using a fraction of what's in here." It
Mhm.
can like have, I think, like probably a reverse psychology kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, 100%, totally, and I think part of that and part of how we've managed that and because I mean, the one thing that we deal with a lot, obviously, on the nutrition side of things is that there is value in wanting to have a volume of resources and content because nutrition is incredibly vast, right? Like there's
Yes.
any number of topics related to nutrition. So, how we've mitigated that issue is we regularly send out emails to our audience with like one handout of like, oh, hey, look at this one that you can download that you can use for like every client. So it'll be like sources of protein or something like that, right? It's like,
Mhm.
this is like a very quick win handout that,
Yeah.
maybe you just didn't even notice. Or, for the new year, we bundled all of our like anything that was relevant to goal setting, sort of new
Mhm.
year, new intention type content. We bundled that all, sent it out in an email, and we were like, hey, just download it directly from this email. So it's just there for you. It's easy
It's
to
amazing.
access.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is like you have to retrain or retrain, but you have to kind of like educate your audience as well in terms of all the things that they have at their fingertips and just make it
Yeah.
so easy for them to use
Mhm.
what they have access to.
Yep. Yeah, that's like a
Yeah.
big focus of us in our website program too. It's like that is
Mhm.
just my core question is how can I make this easier? Like
Yeah.
that's all
Yeah.
I'm trying to solve for, and it's just
Yeah.
and obviously sometimes yeah, you're like I don't want to overcomplicate this. So how can I make it easy? But it is also like you said like resurfacing content that you already have, maybe putting it in a slightly different way or this is how you use
Mhm.
it. That's still value. So no, you're not putting out a new handout, but you're helping your members see what they already have access to and here's some new ideas. You guys are still
Yeah.
doing work to put those ideas together and all of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
100%. Yeah.
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 I think that that's interesting. So, what have you found? I mean, you maybe have already mentioned this like the most valuable things for your members that you feel like they keep kind of coming back for. Is it the calls? Is it the forum and the community? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really it's the on-demand stuff. So it's like and so if for us, it's our most popular tool is our handouts, our client handouts for sure, because they're
mhm.
just like so easy to use. I mean, we have dietitians who log into our platform 8 to 10 times a day because they're literally before a client, like they're like
Yeah.
looking for like the resources and tools that they need. So those are our
Wow.
most popular handout or like offering for sure. But if we're
Mhm.
thinking about like somebody else who's starting a membership, I think anything that's like a just in time resource or like a meal plan, a recipe, something I can use today, something that's going to give me a quick
Mhm.
win, a quick tip, even if
Mhm.
that is like a, community post about something. Like the other
Yeah.
day, I was even I mean, this is just an idea, but like I was on Instagram and there's just this dietitian who posted like 3 high protein meal prep things she's doing on a Sunday. And I was like, that is like, and I bookmarked it. And I'm like, I'm a dietitian. I have all of these ideas available to me. And like, I still find it hard to meal prep every single weekend. So it's like, this was still valuable for me. So it can be
Yeah.
as simple as like you as the facilitator popping into the community and like, hey, here's 3 things I'm making this Sunday, high
Mhm.
protein things I'm making this Sunday for the week. Like that is valuable. And so
Mhm.
doesn't have to be anything big or extensive. I think
Mhm.
those like quick win, just in time, easy to download resources are often the most leveraged. And then, of course, yes, the community forum. I don't know about, like group calls and that sort of thing.
For your model, maybe not so much. It's
Not so much, but I also hear this from dietitians too. I think
mm,
who run communities and try and do, and it depends. It's not always the case, but
mhm.
I do hear this from dietitians that, if they're running it as a like, okay, let's all convene for a group Q&A once a week at this set time,
Mhm.
that can be a lot more difficult to get people to come to
Mhm.
versus if it's a little bit more of like a, hey, I'm just going to pop into the community and do this like cooking demo. If you're here, you can post questions. Wonderful. Great. It's a little bit more informal.
Uh,
I feel like in today's day, that actually tends to work a little better. So,
interesting.
yeah. So I do think things are kind of changing. I mean, like you said, we're all busy, right?
Yeah.
Every single one of us, we have many different priorities. I know as much as we want to think that like our programs are,
The top
special
priority.
snowflakes and like, right, these like top priorities in people's lives, like they're just
Yeah.
sadly,
Yeah, I
but
have
that's okay,
unread responded
right?
messages from a community I'm in, and I'm just like, I'll get
A
to 'em
hundred
eventually.
percent. And you're fine with it. It's like, "Oh, that's fine. They're
Yeah.
there. It's there when I need it. And so we have
Mhm.
to just be there when people need us. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So,
Yeah. Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when you started your membership, were you just doing it all by yourself? I mean, now you have a team. Did you have a
Yeah.
team to help you? Like how has team helped you expand and like where just to kind of like also level
Yeah.
set. You're 4 years in now. You're doing amazing stuff, but I'm sure it didn't start this way.
100%. So, yes, at the very beginning, I was totally by myself. I did hire some dietitians as consultants for like one off little projects. So, if I
Mhm.
needed some content related to like a subject matter that I had no expertise in, then I would hire a
Mhm.
dietitian contractor, but it would be for like a one project thing. So,
Yeah.
by and large, it was just
Mhm.
on the day-to-day running of the business. So it was like,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm doing facilitation, I'm doing customer service, I'm doing the website, like it was all the things.
Doing sales, marketing.
Yeah, all the things.
Yeah.
And then I think it was after a few months that actually one of the dietitians that I had hired to do one of the consulting projects for me, Olivia, her and I actually knew each other from our past workplace when we were working as dietitians. We met, and so we had kind of stayed in touch. And then I ended up hiring her, and I think it honestly started out as like, I don't even remember, maybe 5 hours a week. Like it was pretty minimal. It was just sort of more as like a, hey, can you just like help me with things as they're
Yeah.
happening? And so she started at 5 hours a week, and then slowly, just, slowly over time, it has grown, and I think that's an important lesson here is that hiring help in your business doesn't mean it doesn't have to be so black or white in terms of like, I, either hire somebody part-time or I don't hire anybody at all, it can literally be 2 hours a week if you want. You can
And like
define
start
what
where
that
you
looks.
are. Like, I need help with
100%.
this.
Yes, exactly, and it can grow over time. So
hmm
that's grown over time to the point where Olivia's pretty much full-time now, but she's been with me basically for since the
Yeah.
beginning. And then I think it was maybe a year and a half ago, I sort of realized that I needed somebody for more of the day-to-day operation. And this was thinking about, you know, I was pregnant, thinking about having a baby, and thinking about like, I can't be responding to customer service tasks
Yeah.
every day. Like, I
Yeah.
really need this to be off my plate. And so then I hired Maria, who I had worked with in a different capacity. And she started out at, I think, 15, maybe it was 15 hours a week or maybe five, and then worked her way up to 15. Now she's full. So it's been a
Wow.
slow evolution over the last 4 years, but yeah, now there's three of us, and we work with a variety of contractor dietitians to do
hmm
review of our content. We're going to be doing more of like live lecture style content this year. So we're calling them
Cool.
learning labs. So they're going to be like live lecture workshop, but I don't like to use workshop because they're going to be more like a deeper learning experience and more connection, more community than. But so we're going to work with dietitians in a contracting role in that capacity. So yeah, it's
Very cool.
been an evolution for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's great to know. I also like the fact that you hired out in areas where you were not an expert. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes we can feel like we need to know all the things. Like we're a
Yeah.
bad dietitian if we don't know this thing or this topic. And it's just like, you know what? You're giving a job to someone who's an expert who has spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. And you do not need to be the expert on all things because I've thought about starting a membership and I'm still like, I don't know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also feeling that pressure of like, well, if I want it to be about marketing, do I need to talk about ads and do I need to talk about TikTok and do I need to be because I don't, I know about those things. I
Sure.
love scrolling cat videos on TikTok, but I can't
Hmm.
tell you a marketing strategy about TikTok for, I don't really want to.
Yeah.
And realizing and seeing in other businesses too, where they bring in those experts and it's totally fine to do that. So I think
Yeah.
anyone who's feeling like, oh God, now I'm going to have to really be able to answer like any question that comes in. It's like, no, there's a
Yeah.
solution for that too.
Oh,
So,
yeah, 100%. And I think, for dietitians who are working with patients and clients, like thinking about all of the practitioners out there that would love to get in front of your audience, right? Like if
hmm
you are somebody in the intuitive eating space, bringing in a body image coach who would love to get in front of your target audience, it doesn't necessarily like that can be very mutually beneficial. You can work that out with them, whether you pay them for that or whether they're happy with the exposure. Like it's, that can be your guys's discussion. But there's
hmm
so many different ways to bring in expertise that is not your own. And you're exactly right. You don't have to have expertise in everything, but you can pull together all of those things. Like there is a way to do it. There's always a way to do it. So
hmm
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
totally.
love
And
it.
I agree with you. Like, I think just being able to, that's one of the things I love the most about business and having a business is being able to contribute to other businesses and contribute to other, to dietitians, right? And be able
hmm
to contribute to the livelihood of other dietitians. I think that's just like a very important thing for me personally. And that's what,
hmm
one thing that brings me fulfillment in my work. And so I think hiring out is wonderful in many ways.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I completely agree. And also will underscore the like just let it grow organically. Priscilla, who will be editing this podcast, she has been mentioned before. She's on my team. She's amazing. I brought her in to help me with few things here and there outreach and it just like she's just continued to take on more things and it's been
Mhm.
amazing
Yeah.
and really turn into this very integral part of the team that I was intimidated when I was thinking about just like trying to hire someone that was more going to have their hand in everything and be project manager operations. It
Mhm.
felt so overwhelming to try and hire for that position. And it doesn't always work out that way, but it can certainly work out where you get someone on the team for one thing. Turns out they have some other really great skills too. They know your business. You jive, you vibe together,
Yeah.
and then it can continue to grow. So that's
Yeah.
That's great.
Totally. Yeah. And that's been both of like Maria and Olivia's roles both started up that way. It was like started with one thing and then has just organically changed, adapted over time as the business grows too. I think that's an important piece too, is like as your business grows and as your revenue grows, then you can
Yeah.
make different and new financial decisions, right? And you can
Yeah.
adjust things like team because revenue is growing. And so it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be that like big, scary investment. It can be that like very stepwise approach that aligns with your business revenue, which
Mhm.
is always how I like to do things.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to,
Yeah.
overextend
Yeah.
ourselves if we don't have to. And it
That's
can
stressful.
probably,
Very stressful.
all made like minor mistakes here and there with
Yeah.
some of that and being like, oh, okay, I want this. And then it turns out you're not ready for that yet.
Yeah.
Pull it back a little
It
bit and
happens.
then,
Yeah. Totally.
move
Yeah.
forward. And it can also be really tough to balance, it is that roller coaster of like, okay, it's really busy. I have no time to get more help. And then, okay, it's slow. Now I have time to get
Yeah.
help, but I'm not really sure like so yeah,
Yeah.
it's a process,
Oh,
but
100%. It's all
but
just
it's
one
worth it.
big science experiment. That's really what right. Like
Yeah,
it's just one big
it
process of
is.
testing and learning
Mhm, mhm.
and just seeing what happens and hoping for the best and changing and adapting as needed. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all of
Of
your
course.
like little behind the scenes of what goes on in your membership and how you do it and how you run it and what kind of numbers you look at and the challenges that people might face. So this has just been wonderful. Where can people go to expand on this topic or learn more from you? Tell us
Yeah.
all the things.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can feel free to follow us on Instagram at Dietitian Success Center. Our website is dietitiansuccesscenter.com. And then I also am a podcast host as well. So the Dietitian Success Podcast, which I now my phrase for it is the Business and Entrepreneurship Podcast for Registered Dietitians, which is a bit of a broad statement, but it's because
Sounds
I really
great.
like to cover kind of everything when it comes to
That's why the
business and
name of this, The
entrepreneurship.
Growth Show, like
Right,
I left
totally.
that
It's
wide open.
yeah, totally.
Intentionally.
Sometimes that's yeah, totally right. Sometimes that's just how it goes. So yeah, I would love to connect with anyone listening. They can feel free to send me a DM if they have any questions. I always love chatting with anyone, everyone. So please feel free to get in
Awesome.
touch. Yeah.
Lovely. Wonderful. Yeah, we'll have all the links in the show notes.
Awesome.
People want to check out your membership. Got some resources on the website too that people can
Yeah,
get a taste
totally.
of what
Yes.
you offer and all of that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And actually, I will mention too, when this episode comes out, if you go to the homepage of our website, there's going to be a free starter kit, which is basically a free DSC starter kit where you can actually create a free account, log into our platform. You can
Nice.
actually see all of our content that we have available. So you can really
Oh,
get a view of what we have before you commit. And there's a few different free tools that you get access to through that as well. So
I love that.
that'll be on the homepage, I'm assuming. No, I'm just kidding. It's just we're not on that website anymore
Yeah.
yet. We're like transitioning to a new website, but yes, it'll be front and center. You'll be able to find it easily. So
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much, Krista, for being
thanks,
here.
Vicky.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you for talking.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of The Growth Show. A huge thanks to Krista for joining us and sharing such valuable insights about membership sites. If you're a dietitian or business owner thinking about starting a membership site, I hope this conversation gave you clarity and inspiration. And be sure to check out the Dietitian Success Center at dietitiansuccesscenter.com and grab their starter kit. And also check them out on Instagram and connect with Krista there. And make sure you also listen to her podcast as well. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who might benefit. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I will see you next time on The Growth Show.